Okay, this is going to be another one of those podcast things. I haven't done a podcast in quite a while, so I may be a little bit rusty here. But what I wanted to talk about right now is dreams. And the question about whether or not, analyzing your dreams is worthwhile seems to me to rest on the point of are your dreams metaphors? And I believe that your dreams are metaphors, but not in a way one might think. There's a lot of people who think that dreams are your subconscious trying to give you messages. That is what dreams are designed for. The dreams are designed for the subconscious to communicate to the conscious mind, or that there's somehow, the subconscious is screaming and trying to get some message to it, but it's only a very small opening, so it's throwing in so much information that comes in a haphazard way. There's that theory, and I do not believe that at all. What I believe is that while you're sleeping, ideally you would be out throughout your entire sleep cycle. Evolutionarily speaking, if there could be a brain that would not dream, that would be better than a brain that had to dream. So, but however it happens, there are certain phases in the sleep cycle that part of the conscious mind, quote, conscious mind, close quote, has to be awake. Obviously not all parts, because if all parts were awake, then you'd be going, hey, this doesn't make any sense. So obviously it's not completely awake, it's not a complete thing, but there are certain parts of, I guess you could say, the neurological repair and restructuring that goes on during sleep. At certain phases, parts of you have to be awake while this is happening. Again, while this is happening, you, quote, you, close quote, end up getting flooded with emotions and imagery that you are not supposed to deal with like this, right? Okay. When you're angry, just imagine like you're being angry or being angry at something. Okay, so there's an emotion there, but what thoughts come to mind when you're angry? What thoughts? Judgment, right? Judgment and being hypercritical and hyper-judgmental is what comes to mind when you're angry. When you're angry, you judge and you criticize, and criticism is a form of judging. So, and I believe that this goes in reverse. If you start criticizing something, you're going to become angry at that thing. And you're going to have this criticism and anger triggered by that thing. Okay? So there you have an imagery, you have something in reality that is connected to this emotion, and this emotion is connected to a thought process. Anger connected to judgment. Now, I'm just using kind of colloquial terms here. In reality, emotions are not distinct from thoughts. Like it's a thought emotion, not they're not separate at all. This separation is just something that we have concocted in a digital fashion. But strictly speaking, thoughts and emotions are not separate. Right, and of course we know that someone without emotions would die. You could say, well, you have to eat. Like, okay, why? Because I want to live. You want to live. What's like the desire to live? That's not a logical thing. It's not an inherently logical thing. It's not illogical, but it's not an inherently logical thing. There's nothing true. The if There's no if in that statement. It's just, I want to live. Well, why? Now, it could be logical to say, if X, then Y, but with an emotion, it's just Y. Right? So, when you have a dream, what typically happens? Well, this idea of just a mess of emotions, of thought emotions occurring, all around the restructuring brain. This would explain the rather disjointed nature of the dream narrative. That is, you're dreaming about one thing, and then all of a sudden the scene completely shifts. Or maybe, and later on in the dream, it'll go back to where you were before, or something like that. Also, another piece of evidence for my little theory here is that dreams tend to be about things that happened recently. Now, these can be events that happened recently, or can be thoughts that happened recently, and recently in like 1 or 2 days. Okay, because it's repairing. And so, and dreams do in fact tend to be about recent thoughts or events. Now, if we go back to the thought emotion thing, let's imagine the emotion of being lost. Okay, when you have an emotion of being, you have an emotion of being lost, of not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do, feeling like you may run out of resources. Okay, that kind of feeling. It's kind of a feeling that a child has when he's in a mall, right? He's lost. And lost and unable and not going to be able to feed himself, right? That's the evolutionary fear. Now, let's say you're in college and you don't know what classes to take, you don't know how you're going to get through the semester or something like that. That triggers the same sort of feeling. Okay. And so you do in fact feel lost. And in fact, I believe that using the same word for being lost in the sense of not knowing what to do in life, and being lost in the sense of like a little kid in a mall, we use the same word for both of those events, both of those real events. And I believe the reason we use those words for both of those events is because they encompass the same emotion and the same feeling. And so now we distinguish the two and say it's being lost in different senses, but the emotion is similar. And because the emotion is similar, the imagery that it's going to connect to is going to be similar, right? Because when you have an emotion of, and this can kind of happen, I've noticed it happened with me when I get angry at something. You can go into like something of an anger session. That is, you're angry about something, and then you start thinking about something else that pisses you off, and that leads you to start thinking about something else that pisses you off, because all of these things are connected. Now, when you're awake, you can nip that in the bud and focus on something else, and it doesn't become this runaway, thing, this nightmare. But when you're dreaming, you can't really nip it in the bud because you don't really know that it's not real. And so that's what I think dreams are. And as for dreams being able to give you a metaphorical message, I believe they can, but that it's not, I don't believe that it's something intentional that any part of your brain is doing, or that it's somehow this is a designed thing. Like, I believe it's like, ideally you wouldn't dream at all, but that while you're dreaming, you get a lot of impressions, that you get a lot of thought emotions, and these thought emotions will trigger other imagery that you have. For example, let's say you're in college and you don't know how you're going to get through the semester, your grades are down, your scholarships are going to expire because your grades aren't good enough, you feel lost, right? You have that feeling of lost, and that dreadful feeling of lost. You go to sleep that night, you may dream about being lost in a mall as a little child, okay, because it's the same kind of emotion, and so the imagery that is connected to that emotion is similar. And that is why, and linguistically, we use the same word for both of those events. And that is why that I think it is best to write out your dreams using lots of words. Because this language, this English language, or whatever language you speak, this language that we've built up emerges from people's thoughts and emotions, right? And so if people use the same word, right, to say, oh, he's stuck. Well, what do you mean he's stuck? Oh, stuck in a dead-end job or stuck in a ditch, right? Those are two different senses of the word stuck, but it's the same emotion, okay? And so it evolved that way, right? It evolved along, emotional lines, language did, using and how words are used. And so when analyzing a dream, you have this wonderful tool that has emerged over thousands of years, with which you can analyze your dreams. And so if you have a dream about being lost in a mall, it's like, oh, well, maybe there's some other sense in your life that you are lost. Moreover, this may not even come to you consciously, right? It may, there may be some other part of your brain that realizes that you are lost, for example, but you don't, okay? And so it puts these impressions of, and so you go to sleep, and then the subconscious part of your brain puts these impressions towards you of being lost, and you get this feeling, and then you associate it with the imagery, and the imagery that somehow you associate with, and I'm not sure how the imagery is selected. You associate it with being lost in a mall or lost, somewhere else as a little kid, and then you wake up and say, "Huh, I had a dream about being lost in a mall. That's an odd dream." Okay. How would you know to think that it means that you're lost in some other aspect in your life? Even though you never had those emotions during your waking day, but your subconscious mind did. Okay. So that's what I think. That's what I think dreams are, and a lot of people, especially the real analytic thinkers who frequented my political economy stuff, think that I'm kind of full of hooey on this, but that's the reasoning that I've come to on why it's useful to analyze your dreams and why dreams are yes, that's it.